Уважаемые господа сопредседатели.
Honorable co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen, this week, with the delay of nearly a month and a half, we are holding a high-level international conference in support of the two-state solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Events in the Middle East, an unprecedented crisis and significant escalation of violence, have once again demonstrated that without a just and lasting solution to the question of Palestine, there will be no genuine peace and security in the region. Over the nearly 2 years that have passed, we have witnessed bloodshed, famine, attacks, and invasions on sovereign states' territories, all in violation of the fundamental principles of the UN Charter, norms of international law, and the basic tenets of the nuclear non-proliferation regime. Continuing down this erroneous and dangerous path risks bringing about the most unpredictable and devastating consequences. Meetings and conferences can be delayed. However, the Palestinians in Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem can no longer wait. The realization of their legitimate aspirations to their own sovereign state and the guarantee of their fundamental rights to self-determination and return have already been postponed for an unacceptably long 80 years. As is well known, the two-state solution was laid out in the very first relevant UN decision on the matter, Resolution 181 of the UN General Assembly of 1947, which proposed the partition of Palestine into two states, one Jewish and one Arab, with Jerusalem designated as a separate entity under a special international regime. However, of the two states envisioned in that resolution, only one, Israel, was created. The USSR was the first country to recognize Israel both de facto and de jure, establishing diplomatic relations with it almost immediately after its declaration of independence on May 14, 1948. At the same time, Moscow has consistently supported and continues to support the creation of an independent and viable Palestinian state within 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital, capable of coexisting with Israel in peace and security. The state of Palestine has had an embassy in Moscow since 1990. Russia's recognition of Palestinian statehood, like its recognition by dozens of other states, was not done for applause, but in the interest of the two-state solution, and has genuinely helped preserve it. Russia reaffirmed its support for Palestinian statehood along with 146 other countries during the UN General Assembly vote in May 2024 on granting the Palestinian delegation full member state status in the United Nations. What is taking place today in the occupied Palestinian territory, as has been rightly noted, is beyond vocabulary. We are witnessing a tragic unfolding of mass dehumanization, suffering, immense casualties, and destruction. Russia has repeatedly stated the Hamas attack and taking of hostages, many of which remain captive, deserve unequivocal condemnation and denunciation. However, that attack cannot be used as a pretext for the collective punishment of millions of Palestinians over the course of 21 months, nor should it be used as a reason to provoke a major regional war. The number of Palestinian casualties is shocking, with over 60,000 killed and 42,000 injured. As Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov emphasized a year ago during the quarterly UN Security Council debate on the Middle East, that number is several times higher than the casualties from 11 years of conflict in southeastern Ukraine, a conflict that, unlike the one in Palestine, Western delegations spare no words nor emotions to describe. In Gaza, in addition to those killed and wounded by mass bombings and victims of epidemics and famine, there are now those who have been shot dead while waiting for food rations. In the words of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Gaza had already become a graveyard for children in November 2023, and today starvation is knocking on every door. The UN World Food Programme reports that 1 in 3 residents of the enclave is starving. From March 2nd until May 19th, Gaza was under a full blockade, and now people are forced to choose between dying from hunger or waiting in line for paltry rations. In the West Bank, military raids are compounded by settler violence, which continues with impunity. The pace of Israeli settlement and outpost construction and expansion, along with the expropriation and destruction of Palestinian property, has long broken every record. Against this backdrop, Israel is announcing plans to annex the West Bank, calling for the resettlement of Gaza, and legislatively affirming its rejection of a Palestinian state. For Palestinians, this will mean one thing: another catastrophe and expulsion. Ladies and gentlemen, we must particularly acknowledge the courage and resilience of humanitarian staff who continue to provide aid to those affected and in need despite all odds. Since the beginning of the current crisis, 483 people have been killed, including 326 UN staff members, many along with their families. We express our condolences to their relatives, loved ones, and colleagues. This is the largest loss the United Nations has suffered since its founding 80 years ago. We must also warn against the harassment of staff members of the UN and its specialized agencies who have been deemed undesirable. This is a direct violation of the UN Charter and member states' obligations under the Convention on Privileges and Immunities. Colleagues, there is only one way out of this bloody impasse: an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire, the unconditional release of hostages and detainees, ensuring safe and unhindered humanitarian access, relaunching the peace process on a universally recognized international legal basis centered around the two-state solution, with Israel and Palestine living side by side in peace and security. We consistently uphold these principled approaches, which have formed the foundation of Russia's position throughout the conflict and will remain unaffected by short-term political fluctuations. Thank you.